All right, this is SSL Dad, and today we're going to talk all about chickens, eggs, and nesting boxes. All right, so there's a lot of things that we've learned over the years having chickens in various coops and locations and different situations that could really help, would have helped us out if we knew, I guess, to start with, and hopefully can help some of you guys out who are building coops or just getting into chickens or having trouble with dirty eggs or chickens eating eggs or chickens roosting in the nest boxes and all kinds of stuff like that. So we'll give you guys a few tips and tricks, and we'll kind of go through things, what we do here and some of the things that we've learned. So the first thing is the chickens roosting in the nest boxes. We're out here in the pole barn chicken coop. It was kind of a temporary coop that we put together about 1.5 years ago, and it's kind of become a permanent thing here. It's actually worked out really well. We've got our nesting boxes here on the side, and we've got all of our roosts set up on the back side here. The trick is to get the chickens to spend the night on the roost and not in your nesting boxes, because what's going to happen is they're going to sleep in here, they're going to poop all over the place and make the eggs messy if there are already eggs in the boxes, or when they go to lay eggs the next morning, there's going to be all kinds of mess in there. The goal is to come out and collect your eggs and there not to be any mess on them. That's the goal here. So the trick is to make sure that the height of your roosting area is higher than your nesting boxes. The chickens are always going to migrate to the highest place they possibly can to roost. They roost all over in our barn sometimes when they don't make it back into the coop at night, and they always want to find the way to the highest place they can get to. It's just the way that they're designed. So if you have roosting areas that are higher than your nesting boxes, they're going to almost always want to be up there rather than down in your nesting boxes. Now you still want your nesting boxes off the ground, because they do like to nest also up off the ground, but you don't have to have them so high that they're going to end up wanting to fly up there and for protection at night and end up roosting in there. So another problem that people have a lot of times is getting the chickens to actually lay their eggs in the nesting boxes. A lot of times they'll end up laying eggs all over the coop and all kinds of stuff like that. So there's a couple tricks that you can use to encourage your chickens, especially if they're new, younger chickens and they're just kind of learning the habits of nesting boxes. Number one, good nesting boxes are important. So you want to have nesting boxes that are around 12 inches by 12 inches. You'd be surprised, the chickens actually like to kind of get into small areas and lay their eggs, so it doesn't have to be super huge. Keep your nesting box material nice and fresh. So I use straw in all of ours, and I would highly recommend that even if you live in a subdivision or small area, you can get a bale of straw from a local farmer or something like that. Get 1 or 2 bales of straw, keep it in the garage, and just grab a flake out every now and then, and keep your nesting boxes stocked with the fresh straw. The chickens really prefer it, they like it. It makes very good nesting material, a lot better than wood chips, I found. In order to encourage especially your new chickens, they actually sell ceramic eggs that you can buy. I've seen them at TSC. That to me seems a little bit silly that I would pay for a ceramic egg when I have lots of eggs already. So your eggs aren't going to go bad if you leave them out in the coop for an extra day. So a lot of times what I'll do is, if I notice the chickens are sometimes they'll get in the habit of laying eggs around the coop, leave an egg in every nesting box. So collect all your eggs. You can put a little pencil mark on them or whatever you want to do. Just leave an egg in every nesting box. They're going to be encouraged. They'll see those eggs, they'll find those eggs, they'll nest. They would much prefer to like sit on them. It's just a habit. They go to where the eggs are already, and they'll nest there. And so you can just leave an egg in there, mark it with a pencil, whatever, and then the next morning come out, grab the one that you left out yesterday, grab the pencil mark one, leave another one in there, pencil mark it, and so you're always taking the oldest eggs out first. That's really one of the easiest ways to make sure that the chickens will lay in there. Eventually, you'll notice that they're always laying in the nesting boxes. Do that for a week or two, and then you don't need to do it anymore. They're going to be in the habit of doing that, and they won't really nest anywhere else. The other thing you want to make sure is that you have enough nesting boxes. So generally I like to keep about a 3-to-1 ratio of the number of chickens that you have to the number of nesting boxes. Of course, you can go higher than that if you want to be sure. I have 7 chickens out in a smaller coop and only 3 nesting boxes, and they seem to do pretty good with that. Every once in a while I get an egg on the floor of the coop, probably because there was no place to nest at that time. Generally the chickens don't all go lay at the same time. They all kind of have their cycles at different times, and so they're usually not going to all use the nesting boxes at the same exact time, at least most of the time. So if you have clean nesting boxes, the nest boxes are up off the ground just a little bit, they've got an egg in them, and you've made a nice cozy spot for them to nest, and you've got enough area for them to nest in, they're almost always going to lay their eggs in your nesting boxes and not all over your coop floor. So another problem that a lot of people have is chickens eating eggs. Bad chicken habit, and that can cause you a lot of problems, right? We don't want the chickens to eat the eggs. We want to lay them, and we want to eat the eggs. So a couple ways to prevent this. First thing you can do is make sure that you don't leave the eggs in the nesting boxes. So if you have your, come out and get in a routine of collecting in the morning or even maybe in the afternoon, get out there, get the eggs inside the house, get them out of the coop and out of the nesting area as soon as possible. It's going to keep your eggs a lot cleaner, number one, and it's also going to prevent the possibility of a bunch of eggs building up in a nesting boxes. Maybe they clunk together when the chickens are getting in and out, get a little crack in the egg, and then they start to peck at that. They see food, they see something there, they peck at it, they eat it, and then they break the whole thing open. Then you've got a chicken that likes to eat eggs all of a sudden. So you want to get the eggs out of there as quickly as you can, and that gives you a much less chance of a chicken eating your eggs. As far as feeding the chickens eggs, I don't really think this is a correlation. You generally aren't going to be feeding your chickens raw eggs. I wouldn't, if you have a cracked egg or something, I wouldn't just throw it to the chickens to eat. You don't want to give them that habit. Feeding your chickens scrambled eggs or cooked eggs and other things like that is really not a problem at all. As far as like food scraps and things, that's not going to lead them to eat their eggs. The one thing that will lead chickens to eat their eggs is if they don't have free access to food. So you want to make sure that you always have an unlimited supply of feed available to the chickens. I have a little kind of auto feeder here, so I only have to come in and fill it every couple days. I've got several of those that I've made around the different coops that we have here. And you want to make sure that they always have access to food. If they don't have access to food, they're going to be looking for food. Generally, if they're in a coop or overnight, or you don't get out to let them out right away in the morning, they're looking for food. They don't have food. They will go sometimes to eggs, and so you want to make sure that they are full and they're not starving, and that will lead them to stay away from their eggs as a source of food. So if you do those things, you really should never have an issue with your chickens actually eating your eggs. They should leave them alone and allow you to get them inside and eat them yourself. So the other thing that people commonly struggle with is chickens laying eggs that are really thin shelled. Sometimes you get the transparent, real thin shells, or just ones that crack really easily. And that's just a matter of the feed that the chickens are getting, or a possibility that they're really young age. They're just starting to lay. Sometimes when chickens just begin to lay, when they're really young, they sometimes can have some real thin shelled eggs. But what you want to do is obviously make sure that you're getting a good feed that has enough calcium in it, and really that's the most important thing. It's pretty common knowledge, but I figured I'd mention it anyway. You can get crushed limestone or oyster shells and other things like that you can add if you're doing like your own feed mix. But generally, if you're getting like the TSC brand or the Family Farm at Home brand chicken feed or whatever you have, that's fine. Local grain mills will mix their own chicken feed as well, and usually they have an egg layer mash or an egg layer mix, and that usually has a limestone product in it or a calcium product that is going to provide your chickens with enough. If you're constantly having a problem with that, you might want to try changing your feed or providing them access to an extra source of calcium, like buying a bag of crushed oyster shells separately and providing that to them as well. So hopefully those tips and tricks helped you out. Just remember to keep your nesting boxes clean, collect your eggs every day, and make sure that you have a roosting space that is higher than your nesting boxes. Just with those main things there, you'll keep your eggs nice and clean, and you'll have a lot better chicken operation. You know what to do. Thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to follow along. And I'd love to hear from you, other pro chicken owners out there. Any tips and tricks that you have for any common chicken egg laying problems, throw that stuff down in the comments and share your knowledge. I'd love to hear from you guys. So as always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.